This woman who had just walked in the door took her clothes off, but her husband was incessantly trembling in bed. The scene moved to a deserted graveyard. A black cat leaped on a decayed coffin. When the coffin suddenly rose upright, and the lid was opened, a female demon appeared. From the green light on her face, we could know that the female demon suffered a tremendous grievance. These two men were the main actor Deng and his servant Xiao. They noticed a girl standing by the river while strolling down the road. Deng thought this person intent to commit suicide. Therefore, they rushed to her to discourage her. But this woman has not yet responded. The servant Xiao suddenly recollected that this day was July's full moon. Suspecting this person was the demon looking for someone for a replacement, he swiftly urged his master to run away. Late at night, they got lost in a wilderness. They fortuitously saw a private house. So they knocked on the door and begged for a place to sleep for the night. A servant opened the door for them. Xiao told that they wanted to stay for one night. But this girl was just a servant, so she couldn't decide. She asked them to wait, and then she quickly ran in to inquire about her master's opinion. The servant girl's name was Mei. She had been a homeless girl before, and then she was saved by the Ying master. Hearing that someone wanted to stay, she immediately refused with a shake of the head. Mei didn't dare to ask more. But when Mei returned to the door, neither of them was there. But when turning around, she saw that the two of them had been sleeping in the room. Mei was quiet and allowed them to stay. But she had just turned away. Deng and Xiao immediately opened their eyes. The two started looking around the house. While not being careful, Deng inadvertently entered Ying's room. Seeing her sleeping naked, he wanted to turn around and leave. But Ying instantly called him back and scolded him severely. The same thing occurred with Xiao. Deng saw this situation, so he offered that they get married. Ying agreed with a smile. Xiao also had the same outcome. Mei agreed with his suggestion as well. Two men unexpectedly had brides like that. Deng was an orphan, so his wedding was organized by 3 uncles. But since everything happened so quickly, no one had met the bride yet. In the early morning next day, his relatives had waited in the living room, because they wanted to see the bride's face with their own eyes. After Deng went out to bow everyone, he turned back to the room. Mei began bringing tea to each person one by one. A man who had just seen her had thoughts a lot on his mind. Xiao immediately gave him a nudge, and reminded him that she belonged to Xiao. Ying suddenly appeared. But when everyone saw her, they were all shocked and terrified. Then they quickly left. Deng thought that it was because he was tardy to greet them. So after that, he brought presents to the second uncle for an apology. But when the second uncle was about to say something, his wife immediately hampered him, and called the servant to bring a new robe. She said that this was the wedding gift for Deng. Deng didn't mind much and he wore it excitedly. At that time, he didn't know that his aunt made this robe thanks to the instruction of a Taoist. The robe was also embroidered with the picture of the deity. In the evening, Deng dressed in a robe and sat in the studying room reading books. But when Ying carried the meal in, she noticed the robe on him. Her face became unpleasant, so she went out of the room. Deng pursued her to the flower garden, but when he wanted to say something, Ying tried to be far from him. Her expression was filled with anxiety. It was because red smoke appeared behind Deng. The deity of exorcism on his robe gradually appeared in red smoke. Ying also revealed her actual appearance. But she totally was not an opponent of the deity. Her spirit quickly returned to her body to shelter. Ying avoided Deng and told him to take the robe off. Then she threw the candle right into the robe to burn it. This made the deity became engulfed in flames. Deng was perplexed by recent events, so he wanted to go up to the mountain and worship ancestors to pray for peace. But Ying refused to go with him. The next day, Deng and Xiao went to the mountain to worship. Suddenly, a Taoist told him that a demon had bewitched his mind. The Taoist invited Deng to his place. He showed Deng a painting. When Deng observed this carefully, he found the girl in the painting looked a lot like Ying. The Taoist told Deng that the girl in the painting had been deceased for almost 20 years. Deng didn't believe in it, so the Taoist said that those who were the same age as him totally realized Ying. Deng recalled what had occurred in the living room on that day. The Taoist recalled back to the night 20 years ago, when Ying was crossing the forest with her family. 3 bandits suddenly appeared. Not only did they steal all of the money, but also brutally murdered her parents. Then they pursued her into the grass to abuse and murder her. Now, these bandits had all become the influential rich men of this area. Although someone knew the truth about the incident that year, no one dared to denounce them. The Taoist gave Deng a flute that could guide the soul. Xiao was so curious, so he tried blowing it. As a result, it truly could summon Ying's demoniacal spirit. The Taoist followed it and took out some demoniacal suppressing amulets to conjure demons from everywhere. But Ying's resentment was extremely intense. The demons were not her adversary at all. Therefore, the Taoist then gave Deng an incantation. In the evening, after returning home, Deng waked up Ying, who was deep asleep, and asked her why she liked to sleep nude. Ying found this issue was so amusing. Deng told her everything about this encounter with the Taoist that day. Ying burst out laughing, and asked him whether he believed in the Taoist. Deng also laughed loudly. However, Ying began to feel nervous at this time. The next day, Ying stood on the hill with full of innermost thoughts. Seeing that, Deng began chanting the incantation. Ying suddenly felt her body was not fine. She inquired with Deng if he was afraid of her. He laughed and said that he was not afraid of her, because he could see Ying's shadow, and the demon had no shadow. On the other hand, Mei told Xiao that she had to go out to buy stuff. Xiao noticed Mei disappeared for a while. He quickly ran away. While walking along the street, Xiao came upon a Taoist. The shaman immediately told that Xiao was being haunted by a female demon. Suddenly, Mei called him from behind. Xiao fled in fear. When Deng was conversing with his eldest uncle about homes on the street, Xiao rushed into him. At this time, the eldest uncle noticed an elderly woman clutching a branch and called out to her granddaughter. That night, the eldest uncle went to the graveyard. This was where Ying was laid to rest that year. Ying's spirit arrived unexpectedly, and the uncle was directly threatened with death. It turned out that 3 uncles of Deng were 3 bandits who murdered all people in Ying's family that year. The second uncle thought carefully, and he decided to go to the graveyard alone himself, to beg Ying to forgive him for his previous fault. But when he was only halfway, he was threatened with fainting. The third uncle trailed behind with a bunch of people to bring the second uncle home. Then he dispatched people to dig up Ying's coffin. As predicted, there was nothing inside the coffin. The third uncle brought people to Deng's house to arrest Ying. Xiao witnessed Ying was tied up. He doubted that if she was a demon, his wife Mei had also to be a demon. Ying was tied to a stack of firewood. The third uncle accused her of offense, and affirmed that she was the female demon harming people. She had to be burnt to death. What will happen to Ying in the end? Was the conspiracy of the third uncle successful? Please look forward to the next part.